I was also working with some folks from the White House Army Signal Agency in getting people from the signal side of the house to work for them. And later on, they asked me what I was going to do when my time was up. And I says, well, I really hadn't thought about it. And he says, how about coming up and joining us? I already had a top secret clearance, so there was no problem with clearances. And so I did re-enlist. I went up to the White House and worked for them for about 4 years. I worked in personnel to start with, and then I wound up in the head shed. They had some records that were so old it wasn't even funny, and they needed to be cataloged and destroyed, and I did that. And my goal was to go to Vietnam from there. And when I got everything done like they wanted done, then they allowed me to leave for Vietnam. I got to Vietnam, I had so many clearances that they wouldn't put me out in the field, and so I stayed with General Westmoreland and worked in his headquarters. I was there for the awesome Tet Offensive, and actually used a weapon and fought from little bunkers outside of our compound, and fired at Viet Cong, who were everywhere. From there, I received a Bronze Star from General Westmoreland, and from there I went back to the Pentagon. General Westmoreland had already gone back, and he was Chief of Staff of the Army, and so I worked in his admin department. They needed a young guy to go out and interview with General Omar Bradley, the last 5-star general, and see about being an aide to him. So I was sent out, and I talked to General and Mrs. Bradley for about 15-20 minutes, and the general says, well, how soon can you be here? And I says, well, I've got a car, motorcycle, and household goods and so forth. I can probably get that done pretty fast. I had a roommate at the time who was a Marine, and he could do most of the stuff for me. So out I went. The Secretary of the General Staff was a 2-star general by the name of Knowlton, who later became the commandant of the military academy, and he was the one that promoted me from Sergeant First Class to Warrant Officer. And I went out to General Bradley's and went to work right away. I had a sister and a brother-in-law and two nieces and a nephew that lived out there, so I stayed with them until I finally got a chance to go get an apartment. And once I got the apartment, everything was going smooth. General Bradley and I became very good friends right away. Mrs. Bradley asked me to go on a hunting trip with General Bradley and her, and it was the only one she'd ever gone on. She wanted to see how I was around the general in an instance like that. So as soon as it was over, the general, when he saw a pheasant, his dog would pick it up, and the pheasant would take off. The general shot it, and he killed it. The dog would bring it back to him, and the general would take it and put it in his little bag there, and everything went quite well. And Mrs. Bradley never went back out with us again. I went with the general several times. We would go pheasant hunting. It was an interesting thing. The general and I did a lot of things together. There was turnover in the senior aides, and I often happened to be about the only one around, and particularly the only one around with any experience with the general and Mrs. Bradley. So I traveled with him to New York. He was the chairman of the board of the Bull Watch Company, and I traveled with him to his 12th Army Group reunions and to a lot of other things. It was just wonderful.